Welcome to the Let's Talk About Talking podcast with your host, Adrienne Fuller, language and communications expert for kids of all ages. On this podcast, we talk about speech, language, and all things happening with your child, giving you specific tactical information you can use to help your kids talk, listen, and thrive in their academic journey.
Well, hello, you guys. How are you? I am so happy to be here today. I am on live and we are also recording for our Let's Talk About Talking podcast. And lately, I find testimonials to be so effective. So last week we were finishing up for the year and we were kind of having our little celebration, and one of the therapists came up to me and she showed me this piece of paper. I think I'm going to actually post it because I videotaped her actually giving the testimonial, but she's one of our very seasoned therapists. But when we had a 2-year-old come in a year ago, and the behavior was very severe. He was not talking at all. And in fact, we have several tiny little rooms in our clinic. And so when he first started coming, he was so upset and so overstimulated. He was scratching the walls and taking the paint off. And it was really, I hate to say a lot, but it was a lot. And so, but with constant therapy, consistency, parents, is always the key. Even when it doesn't feel like it's working. This parent came in once, twice a week, and then we added occupational therapy in. And the therapist showed me this piece of paper, and he had drawn a little kind of a circle with two kind of eyes, and then two little side balls on the side of the therapist's head, in the picture. And then he looked up at the therapist and said, "That's you." I still get excited 20 years later in the field how much speech therapy helps. And so I do this podcast and these lives are to motivate parents and therapists, because sometimes we are in it and it feels like, is it working? But my answer is to you, yes. It is working. And so I am so happy today that we are going to be joined by somebody I'm kind of a fan of. Bonner is a speech language pathologist, and she is actually also a tutor, which I love. And she tutors ACT, SAT, GRE, GED, and Praxis. And so I love her energy online. If you don't know, her business is called For Other Prizes Consulting. That's also her Instagram name. And I love it. She just goes for it, man. That content is fire, Jessica. I love it. But welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. I'm good. How are you today?
So good. I'm so glad to be talking to you in person.
Thanks.
So thank you so much for joining me. Guys, this will air later, but just for context, we are on Christmas break. Well, I'm on Christmas break. Are you on Christmas break?
Yes, we just got out last Friday. I
don't know. It has been quite a school year, right?
It really has been. It seemed like this Christmas break was creeping on by, but then it finally came on through on Friday. Hey, yes.
So yes, she was so generous to join me today. And this podcast, I tend to do a lot of early intervention content, but my goal for this whole podcast is to reach parents from birth even through we get them into the college age. And so I kind of want to go ahead and it's not really the elephant in the room, but it's kind of like a myth that, if you need tutoring, that you're dumb. I personally, this is my own journey when trying to get into graduate school, I was never the best test taker. I remember that SAT and ACT being very difficult for me, despite my grades being just fine. I used to get such anxiety, but then when it came, that just followed me. And when I decided to go to grad school, I needed to, take the GRE. I think I took it like 3 or 4 times. After time 2, I recognized I needed a tutor. And that was, to me, it made all the difference between getting into grad school and getting not. Then the GRE scored a little different, right?
Yeah.
Like when I was taking it, you needed like at least 1,000. But now it's kind of, how is it now?
Well, it is now where you need at least a 300. But interesting, I did test on the old GRE because I'm a non-background speech. I was in English first, and so when I first went for my English master's, back in what year I entered school for that, I think it was 2010. Yeah, and I took the GRE then. It was 1,000 that you had to have a minimum. But then by the time I went for speech grad school and I entered that program in 2017, but I took the GRE in 2016, you needed a 300. So they had changed the scoring. It actually messed up my old scoring where it took me from I guess the equivalent of right at average of that 1,000 to below on their new scale. So I was not happy about that. So I had to take the whole thing again on this new GRE and new scale. But yeah, you have to have them average at least 300, and the highest you can make is a 340.
Oh, that seems like it's like a smaller range.
Definitely.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes.
I don't want to anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. But I do want to. I think when we are working with things like test anxiety or anything like that, I find, and if there are any grad students listening, hacking myself was the best thing because I had to know, Adrian, you tend to talk yourself out of the right answer. So for me, I recognized pretty early, go with what I usually thought. And I find that in life too. Do you find that in life? What you think is the right answer at first is the right answer?
Exactly. I have the same exact experience. We've grown up and our teachers have told us in the school, they said, go with that first one. And then, in our minds, we'll still say, but no, I still think it's the other thing. And we'll mark it and then later on. But the teacher did tell me to mark the first thing, that I felt that it was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. So even when I took the praxis, so when speech therapists graduate, we also have to take a standardized test to prove that we know what we know. And so for me in my program, we had to either take comprehensive exams or do like a thesis paper. And so most of us opted for the comprehensive exam. So my thing of hacking me, I said, I'm already in study mode. Let me grab a book to do the praxis, and then take it right away. Even though I'm tired, remember those grad school days?
Yes.
You're tired, you're exhausted, but you are already in that student mode. I highly recommend, if any students are listening, take the praxis sooner than later. What are your thoughts?
I totally agree. I did the same exact thing actually, and I had to take an extra semester of grad school, so I finished in a December versus a May, and it was in 2019. And so I remember I took the comprehensive exams, and then like you just said, since you were already in study mode and praxis was getting ready to come up, I think comprehensive exams end of November, early December, because I had to do some retakes of comps. And then I remember I did praxis, I think that first week of December as well. So it was that perfect timeline. I might as well go out and do it all. And yeah, I remember at the end when I took the praxis and I got the score that I passed, I had already signed up to go to a PJ Morton concert in Birmingham, Alabama that night, and I rewarded myself. I said, well, whether I get it or not, I'm going to go to this concert, but I got it. And I said, oh, this is celebration, graduation, praxis, passing, comps passing, everything.
Yes. And so I think by the end of that graduate school period, I was almost too exhausted to be anxious. I was like, I was like, I'm just going to go for it. And that was the best test I ever took.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The praxis is not that terrible. The GRE is more challenging.
Yes, it is. It is. So can you tell me what made you start your consulting business for the prizes, your tutoring? I don't want to call it a gig because it is your full-blown business, and word on the street is that you're making tons of money doing it. Not that we're doing it for money, but not that we're not doing it for money.
Yes, yes. So what I'm doing with that is I'm learning for, I'm getting into different avenues. So like, workshops is a newer component. So it's not something I had always had. I had been doing most of my 6 years in tutoring independent, just one-to-one. So then there's not as much money with that. So that's why I'm like finding different avenues, and that's more recent than the other one. But yeah, I started it in 2016, but I actually have a history of tutoring in my universities. I have, if you don't know, I have 4 degrees. I have 2 bachelors and 2 masters. So I told you I switched from English to speech therapy, but I did a second bachelor's in communication science disorders, and then applied for the master's, and so that's why I have 4. But I had done at all 3 of my universities, I had tutored. So I tutored student athletes, just general tutoring center for the whole university. I had tutored people up to doctorate level and things like that, and even students becoming nurse practitioners. So it's very interesting to do all that. So later on, some years down the road, I remember my sister and I were talking. She's like, "Yeah, you're really good at tutoring. Like, you might want to consider opening your own tutoring business." And I thought about it. I was like, "Okay, yeah." And I learned myself personally, just like with speech therapy, we have a lot of times we can do one-to-one work with our people, and I realized that's a strength of mine, being able to do that. And so I decided to just go ahead and open that up, fresh. Didn't know what in the world I was doing. I said, "Well, let's try and see what's going on," and then that's how I got it started.
So, what's your favorite subject to tutor?
Interestingly, when I was in high school, it was like a battle for me between English and math, and I had an amazing math teacher in there, which made me actually enjoy math, which is interesting. And so it's a break between both. I think it's like because I've done English so long, I always say that was my top, but then I think over the years it really has shifted over to math. So yeah, and for instance, one of those things I love to do, even like the math portion of the ACT. I don't know why, because I think it's just been some years that I had been doing it for a while, and I was like, I think I got the hang of this, and I just love doing it, like workshops for that just particular section. I had done one like 2 weeks ago, I think, for the Delta sorority, and they had over 100 kids there. I taught them in 2 sections of about 50 kids in one section, and then the next hour 50 kids in another section, and I enjoyed myself. I said, "Whoa, this is fun! I love it." Yeah, so math, it shifted from English to math for me personally.
Oh, I love it. I love it because one of my, we are a women-owned profession, but I do hate when women say, I can't do math. I hate math. It's really, I love that you're here in the space. I'll just leave it at that. Sometimes I get on soapboxes, and I'm not going to do that today. But, all of us like counting the money we make or counting progress, and that's math, guys. So don't stop saying you're not good at math.
Yes. Yes, and even in my speech therapy program, I don't know if it ever happened in your speech therapy program, but I had a few professors say it a few times, and we SLPs are not good at math. I'm thinking, who is we? So that's not me, but the teachers, professors will actually go out and say that, and I just thought that was so weird in my opinion.
I hate that. Yes, absolutely. So I think, can we talk about how parents can go about finding the right fit for their child? And I guess growing up, I always felt, like I said earlier, that maybe if you had a tutor, then you weren't as smart. But I think what we're all beginning to know with all the college scandals and things like that, parents with money, wealthy people have been using tutors for years, guys. So please stop. I want to dispel that myth. A tutor is just a tool to help you get to the next part of your journey. And if you look at tutors like that instead of a punishment, or it's just someone that helps you see it in a different way or give you that extra nudge you need, just like therapy would be, right?
Yes, I totally agree. One thing I definitely recommend is, trying them out. I know when I first started tutoring, before I opened for other process consulting, I was on a platform called Wyzant.com. That's WYZANT.com. And that's basically a tutoring marketplace. So you can find anybody across the United States. You can sign up for online tutoring with that person. You can sign up for in-person tutoring with that person. So when I started working independently tutoring, I started there. And so, and there are people with different price ranges. So if you're looking for a particular price range, you can do that. But test out people, pay their rate, work with them, send your child there and see if there's a good connection or whatnot. And then if you like it, obviously you can continue forward and do another session. But if it's not a great fit, you have that option to go on and find another tutor and try that one out. So it's just really just trying out until you find something that works for your child.
Wise Aunt is a great place to find them. What's another way a parent could find a great tutor for their child?
If I've noticed one thing that my school system does, they actually started recruiting some tutors for some of our kids from the local universities. Because you go to college and, even grad school, how we were in grad school once upon a time. Yes. And it's so competitive, and so intense in speech therapy grad school. They tell us we can't have full-time jobs, right?
Right.
But you still need to make some cash. So, hey.
Living expenses, yes.
Make some cash. So just know that, for instance, by the way, if you're just a grad student, no, that's an option for you. Don't downplay your skills and stuff and say, well, I'm just here for speech therapy. Like, you could be making some cash with some knowledge that you already have. But yeah, so you can look at local universities. Sometimes you can go and contact their tutoring centers and see if they know of any tutors that be open to do some outside work. Because when I used to work at the tutoring companies, when I used to work at the tutoring centers at my universities, they would send out email blasts to us tutors and say, by the way, this person in the community is looking for a tutor. If you're willing to arrange your payment and whatnot outside the university with them, you could go forward that way. So yeah, they would send email blasts to us about that. So totally go to your local universities. Students are looking for extra cash, and then they're knowledgeable. And the ones who are serious, they won't be experienced. So it could be a win-win for everybody.
Right. And oftentimes when you're a student, you need that, maybe those funds or whatever. Tutoring for $20, $30, $40, $50, really $100 an hour. You can work a couple of hours and make what you would have made, even Instacart or whatever. You can make it pretty easily. With the pandemic, Zoom is an option, and so that's a great way.
Yes.
I'm thinking maybe Thumbtack.
Yes. I've heard of Thumbtack. I don't think I've used it before, but I have heard of Thumbtack. So yeah, you can sign up for there. Is it the one like care.com? I think that they have it too, where you can have an option to sign yourself up as a tutor there. So and they have a variety of websites where you can list yourself as a tutor for your child.
So all of those are great options, parents. Wise Aunt, care.com, Thumbtack, and also word of mouth on your local university. And word of mouth, if you have your mom friends or parents that like once you start raising kids, you form bonds with parents who have kids your same age. And so oftentimes word of mouth is a great way to get any provider, I find, right?
I agree. I've gotten actually some of my clients through word of mouth. They would call me up and say, I got your number for this such and such. And, I wanted to see how, what it would be for my child with tutoring. So, yeah, I've definitely gotten word of mouth as well.
So, I guess, have you ever had a situation where it wasn't a good fit? And how did you handle that?
I remember a time, for the most part, fortunately, most recently, for the most part, it's been a good fit. But maybe I'm thinking about let's say I give a case off of wiseant.com. Like I told you, people can try out somebody. So then, maybe the parent tried it out that one time, but then I didn't hear from them again or whatnot. And so I just remember working with the child, like I typically work with the child. But I remember more than two cases, the child would just be almost dead silent. And you know how kids, they could be shy. Some just don't like people. They had a phase and they just don't like folks. It could be whatever. I don't know what it is. And potentially they may have gone back to their parent after the session was over and said, I don't think this is a good fit, mom or dad. And then they made the decision, okay, I'm not going to continue forward with this tutor. So it's what I noticed is that the parents will give their child kind of that choice in that, but in that case, it's just based off that child's feeling. And in that case, I don't pursue them or whatnot. I just let them go. And, as a tutor, and, I don't pursue it any further because I want them to be able to go on and find their right fit.
Right. It's never, parents, it's never personal. I usually, and I've had parents say this and it was like, ooh, a little tough to hear. like, oh, we don't think it's the right fit, or the hours don't fit. But yeah, we don't take it personally, but at the end of the day, parent, you have to be the advocate for your child. So if it's not a good fit, lesson release them, and you can just totally move on, right?
Yes, totally, and that won't be a problem. And for me, I guess on my side, if I've ever worked with someone, they want to continue to work with me, but I don't see it as a good fit. Well, I guess one thing I know I started doing lately, just as entrepreneurs, we had to learn over the time about learning about our value that we bring to the table. So I started out charging like extremely low in the beginning because I didn't know. And then one thing I noticed is like with some of the ones who did pay low, they were not a problem. Then there were some who were problematic, like coming late all the time. You could tell they didn't really take advantage like that. I mean, like, they weren't being great clients. So then what I would do is like when I was in this phase of anyway, like raising my rates because based on the value I brought, I would just go ahead and bring the rate up. I would tell myself, I feel so guilty because like I bring the rate up is they can't pay for it, but then like also I'm shortcutting myself for the value I'm bringing their child. And I feel kids go on and go from C's and D's to A's, and I'm talking like that. And the parents still want to give me a tough time about like the price. But I would just go ahead and just raise the price. And I mean, I hate to say it, the person would go away. I mean, I don't want to be mean, but it's like, I'm also charging you for what I'm bringing to the table for your child based on past proof you've seen that I've done for your child. I have a right to do that. But then if they were more like annoying, then they kind of fall off after that.
Yes, that is so true. About how long do you see kids for? Is it like a month, a semester? What tends to be your average length of time spent with a student?
Well, it really does depend on what they're needing. Like I remember one time I met one student weekly for a month, and he just needed to prepare for the ACT, but he had already taken it about 3 times at a time. I met him and wasn't getting the score that he needed, but then he was a senior, and it was like that January of that senior year, and he was just fed up and tired of that test, which we just talked about.
Yes.
And he was ready to be done. So he took the initiative to go home and just study for it, and his score bumped up, I think, like an extra 4 points beyond what he had ever made, like ever before he worked with me.
That's
so
awesome.
In that case, it was 1 month. And then I had a special needs student who I actually just stopped working with, was it in December last year? Actually, she's stuttering and learning disability. But I started working with her when she was 10 going on 11. Can't believe she's 19 now and in college. I know. So I worked with her through to like 18 years old. Like, there were some times there was on and off periods. But for her, because of her special needs, she needed a little bit more help than her peers, her typically developing peers. And so her parents, they saw the rapport between the two of us. And, I actually started working with her before I became a speech therapist. And she actually taught me about patience as a speech therapist. So I think in that case, what it was about, maybe about, what was it? I'm trying to do the math on that. Like 7 years for her.
Wow.
So about 7 years with her, right? And then the other student as short as a month. So It ranges between that based on need.
Based on I always tell parents, especially when they're paying out of pocket here in our office, we base it on the need and also your budget. Like sometimes as caregivers, sometimes we just like throw out these things, but I do want to be cognizant. These are hard times. These are tough times. So parents, just remember, it can be as short or as long as you want it to be. So it doesn't have to be like every week for their whole entire high school career. Exactly. It can be, I love that, just a month just to get them ready, get them in the mode of testing. I love that idea, but I love, like right now, my niece has an SAT prep course she does every Sunday, but she's done it for the whole school year so far. So that's pretty long term. And so I don't know, when we talk about the cost, I just want to remind parents, I don't want to be in your pocket, but sometimes we spend so much money on things that don't bring as much of a return as therapy, and to me, especially tutoring does. Like, right? Don't you think, like, we spend a lot of money going out to eat or on clothes that have name brands sometimes, or even entertainment. Like, we were going to go to Vegas for a concert, and those concert tickets were $500. That's a lot of tutoring. And so I didn't get those concert tickets, by the way. I'm still thinking about that. But you know what I'm saying? I'm saying sometimes when we start to kind of add up what we're spending some money on, tutoring could be that cost.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was making a post over there on my page, and I was talking about how, like, I live in the state of Alabama, and in 2019, before the pandemic occurred, we were ranked last in math out the whole country.
Wow.
And, I forgot there were 52 territories in the United States. Because I think about 50 states, but I read an article and it said out of the 52 territories, Alabama is last in math, and I think it was like 48th or 49th in reading, which is almost last, right? And that was 2019 before the pandemic. And as you've heard, about the changes that have occurred due to the pandemic, how the kids were delayed about 2 years. And I'm thinking, if you are at the bottom, imagine where you are now. But then in my state, there's an overemphasis like on football, and so much to the point that I disengage. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it at all, because I'm like, y'all, we really need to be focusing on this. Like, clearly we need to focus on this. And like, I understand, like, a lot of people see that as a ticket to getting, fame, and then you can provide for your whole family. But unfortunately, the reality is not everybody's going to get in the league. So you have to at least have the backup of education. Then you win all around in case that path doesn't work out for you.
Very true. Very true. And parents, if you're having difficulty, as a lot of us are, I mean, everything's gotten really expensive, but instead of gifts from family members, maybe you could ask for, hey, I'm gonna get a tutor, so could you just, whatever money you were going to spend on a gift, maybe could we put that towards a tutor for ACT prep or math, or it would be a dollar well spent.
Absolutely. I love that idea. Absolutely. Yes.
As we're getting ready to leave today, if there are parents still on the fence about tutoring, what would you tell them?
I want you to consider, where do you imagine your child one day? And, I know sometimes, I'm personally not a parent, but like, for instance, I'll take my mother, there are some things she wished she had done before she become a mother. And I still try to convince her today. I say, I don't care your age, Mom. You can still go back to school if you want to. But anyway, there's things obviously she wished she had done when she was younger. And so you as a parent, I want you to think about, for instance, when you were younger and you were thinking about, if I knew this when I was such and such age, at my child's age, I would want to do that. So, not that you're necessarily forcing anything on your kid, but kind of consider, well, what you wish or hope that your child would be, even at their current age, or even in the next 5 years, the next 10 years. And you could be making a huge difference in that dream, with that future by investing.
Awesome. I'm going to quickly piggyback off of what Jessica said. If there's a parent out there thinking, man, I had my shot, I blew it, I can't go back to school, I can't start a second career. Guys, even at age 40 or 50, you still have so many, even 60 or 70, you have 10, 20, 30, 40 years left in your lifetime. You can do so much in that 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So if you still want to do that thing, go back to school, start that career, go for it. Jessica, thank you so much for your time today. Man, I love to see where you're going. I feel like I am a speech therapy auntie, and I have interviewed so many wonderful up-and-coming speech therapists. You are one of them. And I just want to say, I'm so proud of what you're doing. I love what you're doing. She's very open and honest about her journey, guys. Check her out on Instagram for the hold on. For other prizes consult. I want to rename your business For the Prizes. I was like, good thing but it's For Other Prizes Consulting. She's doing real big things, guys. I'm so proud of you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you so much for inviting me on here. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Let's Talk About Talking podcast with your host, Adrienne Fuller, language and communications expert for kids of all ages. You can grab Adrienne's book, 30 Days to Get Your Toddler Talking, on Amazon or at speechbuilders.org.